So today I will be demonstrating my Promeo Week 6 Java project for the War card game. And we're going to start off with our card class here, which has the field of value and name, and the get and set values for each one as well. And there's also a describe method that prints out the value and the name of the card. Uh, Next up is also note that the sets for each one returns a card value and returns this, which will be useful for method chaining, which we'll see in the deck. The deck has a list of cards, which is called cards. And once the deck is instantiated, the constructor adds all of the card values to the cards list, new card dot set name set value, which is why we had the chain method set up in the card class. There's also deck shuffle, which shuffles the cards using the collections method, and it returns this, same as the chain method. There's also a public card draw, which returns the card removed from the top of the cards list, which would be the top of the deck. Next up is player, which also has a list of cards named hand, an int value of score, and a string value of name. The constructor for player takes in a string, which will be the name, and it sets the score to 0. Here we have, as you could see, this dot name refers to this name, and string name argument refers to this name right here. So it sets up the name inside of the class to the argument. Next up is the describe, which gives out the player name, the score, and also describes each card in the player's hand. Then there's the card flip, which returns the card at the top of the hand, and draw, which draws from the deck, which we saw earlier, and adds it to the hand. Next up is the increment score, which increases score every time we call this for the player class. Next up is the app class, which contains our main method in order to run the code. And starting here, we first make a deck and shuffle it using dot shuffle with the method chaining that we set up inside a deck. Then there's Boolean in order to make sure that the players are alternating in the for loop down here. We also start up player 1 and player 2 using the string names. And as for the for loop, it iterates 52 times, alternating between the players using player O, and it makes them draw from the game deck until there are no cards left, which would be 52 iterations. And the next for loop after that takes 26 iterations, which would be the half of 52, of course, in order for each player to flip the cards, which are assigned to a card. And there's a description given to them before they have their values compared. And once their values are compared, it'll mention which of the players scored or if there was a draw. And after each turn, it prints out the current score for each player. After all the turns have been played, it prints out final score. And it prints out the scores for each player. Depending on which player has the most scores, it then prints out which of the players wins, unless it was a tie, in which case it would simply print out draw. And we're going to spend the remaining time comparing the cards that have been played. So I'm going to run this code again, just for the sake of running. It reads draw right there. We're going to go ahead and just run it a second time. And we're going to start from the top. So we get the first card value, which is called when the cards get compared, right here. Card.describe. This is where it's calling it for each time. So looking at the first comparison, we have card value 2, card name 2 of hearts, card value 8, card name 8 of clubs. The second card is higher, so the player number 2 scores, and it prints out the score for each. Player 1 is 0, player 2 is 1, and so on and so forth, until we see that the final score for player 1 is 8, player 2 final score is 17, meaning that player 2 has won. And this concludes this recording.